Hello everyone, this is ponderonweather. In this update, we're going to be talking about Tropical Storm Elsa bringing high winds and flooding rains to Florida and then redevelops back into a storm off the Carolina coast, and then also a look at the tropics for the rest of July. So if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. Good morning, everyone. This is July the 5th, and this is your tropical storm update on Elsa. It is currently a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm at the 11 a.m. advisory. It's moving northwest at 14 miles an hour. It's about to make landfall in Cuba, and it would actually be the first landfall in Cuba in July since Hurricane Dennis back in 2005. This is expected to remain a tropical storm and make impact and landfall as a tropical storm off the coast of Florida sometime early Wednesday morning, and then be downgraded into a tropical depression as it crosses into Georgia as well as South Carolina, and then possibly reforms back into a storm again once it gets off the North Carolina coast, and then will bring tropical storm force conditions along the East Coast as it quickly moves off the Northeast. So let's get right to it. Here's the latest satellite picture. You can definitely see the swirl out here it left a mark in Jamaica yesterday. It moved across the Cayman Islands, and it's about to make landfall in Cuba, and it's crossing over a lower terrain area. So it's not going to be inhibiting the strength of the storm very much, as this will continue moving across into the Western Gulf, and it's going to sit about 2 days into the Western Gulf, maybe possibly get a little stronger, but it is expected to make landfall as a tropical storm sometime on Wednesday morning, just north or just right around the Tampa Bay area. So let's look at the storm surge, because that's going to be an issue as well. As this continues moving off northwest, this will bring a pretty good storm surge of 1 to 2 feet down here in the Florida Keys, and a little bit higher off a little further north you go, 1 to 3 inches. But once you get around the Tampa Bay area, that's going to be your most prevalent storm surge of 2 to 4 feet right off the coast here, going into Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So definitely be on the lookout for that, especially if you live along the coast. And as we take a look at the latest NAM 3K, you can see some of these higher wind gusts. As this comes off the coast of Cuba, it's possibly going to be re-strengthening. And some of these wind gusts from the latest output puts it at 86 miles per hour off the coast of west coast of Florida here by the 11 a.m. update on Tuesday. So yeah, definitely some higher wind gusts as you're going to start to feel tropical storm force conditions in Cape Coral as this moves up into Sarasota around 26 miles an hour. That's about at 11 a.m. on Tuesday. But as we expand the view, as we get closer into the nighttime hours, that's when you can start to see those tropical storm force conditions, 63 mile per hour into Sarasota, and 64 on top of that 2 to 4 foot storm surge, and some very heavy rain in the Tampa Bay area. So that's when it starts to make the move off a little bit, shifting off into the Northeast as well. So when it shifts off to the Northeast, that's going to push a lot more water into the coastal regions off Tampa Bay there. So definitely it is a concern as we go forward in time, Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning. And as we make that transition, you'll start to see the winds not just being felt on the West Coast, but start feeling on the East Coast. But before that, we got some high waves to talk about offshore. So that's why we're going to have that storm surge, because we're talking upwards to 33-foot waves off the coast of Tampa Bay here by the time we get into that Tuesday night, overnight, into Wednesday morning time frame. So as we expand the view, looking at some of the wind gusts as we go into Tuesday evening, yeah, we could be looking at some 56 mile per hour wind gusts going into Orlando as it makes that shift off into the Northeast, and up here into Daytona Beach. We'll start to feel those tropical storm force conditions as well. This is continue to lift off into the Northeast. And by the time we get into the overnight hours on Wednesday, yeah, those tropical storm force conditions could be on the other side of Florida. So a good chunk of Florida is going to be impacted with tropical storm force like winds for a good chunk of the state. And as this will continue lifting off further off into the northeast, Jacksonville, by then, by early Wednesday morning, we'll start to see the tropical storm force winds as well. But the rainfall is going to be another huge concern with this system, with it actually slowing down from that 30-mile-per-hour storm we saw earlier on in the cycle. Now it's half that at 14, which is a little bit more average, which these tropical systems tend to move at. But yeah, some of these totals are pretty impressive down here in this in South Florida. Zooming out, around 1 to 3 inches in and around the Miami area, but on the coastal regions into Sarasota and Tampa, at least 3 to 6 inches is not out of the question. And then you could see some isolated spots within those narrow bandings of at least 8 to 10, and some of the model data pushes upwards to 11 inches of rain with these training thunderstorms as they shift up and move, and especially as the winds go from northwest and then they switch over to the northeast, you'll get those training bands moving up. And this is just over a 2-day time span between now and to Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. So yeah, some of these areas could be looking at possibly double-digit totals in isolated spots in and around South Florida as this will continue shifting off into the northeast. And as it does that, and it is expected once it gets back over the open waters, yes, it could redevelop it, be downgraded to a tropical depression, be redeveloped as back to a tropical storm. So yes, it's not out of the question off the coast of the Carolinas, you could be seeing tropical storm force winds off the Carolina coast by the time we get into that Thursday afternoon time frame, as Elsa possibly could redevelopment back into a tropical system. And the latest EPS probability guidance has that happening as this will shift off into the northeast. And that's why the latest track on the National Hurricane Center would redevelop it back into a tropical storm off the coast of the Carolinas, as this would continue hugging the coast, bringing some of those higher wind gusts along the coastal regions into even into the Cape Cod area, up here into the northeast, as this would continue moving across into Friday time frame, and then this will eventually lift off out into sea. But yeah, some of the rainfall totals are even pretty impressive along the coast here, along this band. So easily a 2 to 4 inch swath could be felt in southeastern parts of Georgia, southeastern parts of South Carolina, as well as southeastern parts of the North Carolina as well, as this would continue lifting across. In the northeast, you're probably not going to be experiencing much rain with this particular system, but you are going to be seeing some of the higher wind gusts, especially right along the coast from Elsa. But as we expand the view, after we finally kind of say goodbye to Elsa, what happens after that? So I'm looking at a shutdown with a lot of sinking air. So we obviously we're on a record pace in the tropics. This is already the 5th named storm. We're actually ahead of even 2020, which brought us those record number of storms. So luckily after that, things tend to look to subside a little bit with a lot of sinking air moving in. And this is the latest JMA guidance, and has that with these oranges and reds sneaking in from much of the Atlantic into the Caribbean. So I do see a period where we're going to have a lot of more or less suppressed air into the Atlantic basin after we move out and finally get rid of Elsa, and even expand the view into the 17 to the 13-day time frame. We're still looking at a fairly lull period with the off the coast of the African coast. Could be looking at, after by the time we get into the end of the July timeframe, a little bit more active period by then. But yes, in the short term, there's a lot of sinking air that's coming out behind Elsa. So once this comes off the coast and moves out to sea, yes, there's a lot of sinking air with these African waves that are coming off the coast now. It's going to be a very difficult time for those to develop, at least in the short term, over the next 5 days, and even beyond that, in the next 5 to 15 days, in the next 2 weeks. And the latest EPS cyclone guidance pretty much has that as well. It has a pretty active that Elsa all congealing together, going up the East Coast. The tropical wave, train shuts down off into the Atlantic. We do see an active period up here into the Pacific. So yes, we're still going to be looking at tropical storm force conditions developing off the Pacific coast. And as these would move across, hopefully they'll probably bring some more rain into Cabo, but as well as possibly New Mexico and even into the Arizona as well, down the line. So that's one of the things that we could be looking at as well. But beyond that, once we get past the 20th time frame, you can definitely see we do see a period that could be a little bit more active again. So once we get past that area, here's the zone we're in right now with a lot of the upward rising motion, and that's why Elsa was able to develop. But then we go into that red period, that sinking air type time frame. But once we get past it to that third week in July, once we get past the July 21st time frame, towards the 26th, getting in towards the end of July, we do see a period where we could have a lot of upward rising motion air sneaking back into the Caribbean, getting close to the US, and then it gets really active coming off the coast of Africa here with these tropical waves going into the first week of August. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea of what's maybe to come after we finally say goodbye to Elsa going forward. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.